All right, welcome everyone. We're the first episode, sort of Off the Hinges, the podcast that we're doing for rodeo families in the central states, Illinois specifically. I'm joined today with Addison, and Jennifer will run the electronics for us this time. And our very first guest is somewhat our very first guest. We've already done this interview. This is part 2. Dale, you get to be the only person that's got the questions twice, so you've had time to think about them. Our very first one got deleted after a 30-minute interview that was really good, and we were anxious to get set back down and do it again, so welcome, Dale.
Well, glad to be here.
Dale, if you would, give us the hot lap around the arena of your rodeo career and kind of how you started and the highlights of kind of what happened over a long and great rodeo career.
Well, I was probably 9-10 years old when my grandpa took me to a rodeo in Bradford, Illinois. First one I ever been to. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then when I was about 15, I went to a rodeo in Peoria just to watch. And I got infatuated by it. And I was back looking at the stock, and this old guy walked up to me and he says, "What do you think of that?" And I thought they're pretty cool, you know. And I said, "How do you get involved in this?" He said, "Just come back tonight." he said, "If your parents are all right with it, we'll put you on something tonight." And it was Ray Cox's dad, actually. And so we went home, talked to Dad about it. He said, "Well, I guess you can go." And that was quite an experience.
Yeah. So you went back that night and got on
I went
then?
back that night.
And how old did you say you were?
15, maybe.
15.
14, 15, somewhere in there.
What'd you get on?
A bareback horse.
Bareback horse.
Yeah, I'll never forget her. She's a little black mare. They said she was all right. She ain't gonna hurt you. Well, they helped me rig. I didn't know nothing about it. Then they opened the gate and she took a run at me, and then she hit the ground, went to bucking, and I was upside down, both feet on one side of the horse, and this only took about 3 seconds. So, but it was kind of a rush, and so that's how it all kind of started.
Sure. And then after that, it didn't end there for sure. So.
No, I went and I didn't enter nothing. I didn't get into anything until a couple of years later, and then I started going after I got my driver's license, and we'd hit some open rodeos and things like that. And Ray Cox helped me a lot. He's the one that I just go to his open rodeos, and he got me started, but I never was real good at it. I was more of a compaction tester. And anyway, so that's how that got going. And then I wasn't any good at rough stock, so I started roping, and I wasn't real rapid at that either. So, and that's how my picking up actually started. Because he was short a pickup man one day, and I'd been to enough of his things. We got to be friends, and he said, "Just take that horse there and go help pick up." I said, "Well, I ain't never done that." He said, "Well, you just follow the other guy, and just chase to him,
Sure.
And anyway, so along the way, he just kept hitting me on, giving me advice. And
have you got an idea how old you were when you picked up your first rodeo?
Oh, I was probably late 20s.
Late 20s?
Yeah.
And then from then on, you just stayed. You did some stock contracting with team rope and stuff.
Yeah, off and on, yeah.
And then picked up.
Yeah, off and on we did that.
How many years did you pick up?
Well, all total probably, if I started back when I was in the 20s, almost a little over, close to 40 years.
40 years of picking up.
Yeah. And you always learn something all the way across.
Sure. I don't know. I always enjoyed watching you pick up because it was, just smooth. Your horses would go, and you could. It's like a storm was happening, but then there was somebody outside of the storm, kind of figuring it out. Staying calm. So it was inspiring, to watch. So.
Well, I learned that from a lot of different guys. I mean, once I started studying different guys, like Benny Jordan, Freddie Crater, Mickey Sakula. They were all real smooth fellas, and their horses were good, and they knew just where to be sitting, when to go. And I studied every time I'd get a chance to see another pickup man. I'd always say, "Okay, that worked good, and that didn't work so good," and that really helped me out a lot.
Mm-hmm. I guess that sort of plays into the lessons you've learned, kind of.
Yeah.
Or how you learned. What's a big lesson that you learned throughout?
to be calm,
Mm-hmm.
take your time,
Mm-hmm.
and don't cause a bigger wreck than what's happening. And
Make one errand into two.
yeah. Like back when I go back to Ray Cox, from the very first time I picked up, I was kind of ramming, and he pulled me outside. He says, "They're inside this pen. They're not going anywhere." It's not like you're out in 40 acres. So he's the one that kind of got me slowed down, and everything kind of fell into place.
I remember Rudy told me one time when I was picking up with you at one of his shows, he's like, "Be fast or slowly."
Yeah.
It means something, but it's a thinker.
Yeah.
That's what you told me that too, with even just when we were pulling flanks and stuff like that. Don't be grabbing, don't be trying to catch it out of the air. Just kind of, be smooth, pin it down, and pull it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now you've had a couple generations of kids that are rodeoing.
Yeah, my son and my grandsons, and I got a son-in-law that lives in Tennessee. He announces a lot of rodeos, and
he's been. He's the finals announcer for few years now, I think.
5 years now, I think.
5 years.
Yeah.
He's good. I got to travel with Mark just a little bit too. He's fun. I'd like to interview him at some point because he has seen a lot of rodeos as well. So.
Well, he'd like to talk to you.
He's good at that. People pay him. I guess we talked about this last time too, but everybody has their favorite memories from rodeo, but everybody has had an opportunity that they missed, where there was maybe a little bit more that they could have done, something, been a little sharper somewhere, been a little more studied up, where we left something on the table that we go back and think about. And I think we can teach other people from our mistakes. A lot of the time you kind of learn, and I didn't know if anything like that come to mind for you, or...
Well, I don't know if this is true or not, but I always applied to pick up at the finals at the IFR, and I'd get just about there, but not quite. And mainly it was because I was in the wrong area.
Sure.
And there was, I probably shouldn't say this, but there was a lot of politics in it, the way they do it, pick them. And, if I would have picked up for more guys south, I probably could have got in.
Right.
I mean, because I had the horsepower, but I don't know, just I wasn't knowing that well.
Yeah, I don't. The guys that at the top level knew you though, and I can remember, a lot of those rodeos that we'd be at, they would jump, rather than get picked up. Several of them. I mean, you know who I'm talking about. Several of them top guys. They wouldn't do that with you. They would, if you were picking up, they'd hang there and wait for you, to come in and get off the easy way.
Pay them to do that.
That kind of, I guess I'll tell a story on myself a little bit at one of them where we were at, but the guy that was kind of at the top of the game at that time come out, and we were picking up, and he come right to me, and he was always, would jump, like, he wouldn't, he'd hit the tutor and he'd bail.
I know who you're talking about.
Type of a deal, but when me and you were picking up, not because of me, but because of you, he'd usually hang around and, we'd pick him up. And he come out, and he got laid off into his hand. And the tutor went off, and he's kind of laid off there, and so I hung out, and I was like, he'll just cut loose and hit the dirt. Well, he went another 2-3 jumps like that, hung off to the side, and I thought, well, son of a gun, I guess he wants me to set him back up. So I made a big move to go in there and grab him and set him up, and he let go right in front of me right as I made my move, and I wadded him all up and stomped on him with my horse, and I thought, dang it, that is not how you want this to do. I think about that a lot.
That'll teach him.
A lot to this day, but he come right back because he rode barebacks and saddle broncs, and so he comes back in the saddle bronc deal, and he's 50-50 shot here, how he draws. I'm just praying like, oh, please let him go to Dale's side, because I'm like, if I have to pick this guy up, he's gonna punch me right in the nose. I just know he is. And anyhow, he come out, sure enough, come right to me, and I picked him up without an event, and it actually went so smooth. He was kind of there, and I said, hey, sorry, about that first deal. And he's just, I don't remember, he said, no, no problem, or whatever, and blew it off. And I seen him after the rodeo, and I said, man, I'm sorry about that. I mean, these guys are trying to, really pull a paycheck, and you feel bad when you run them over. And I said, I'm sorry about that. I said, I thought you kind of hung out there. And he's like, I just kind of went deaf, and I didn't know if I'd made the tutor or not, so I just hung there for a while. And I was like, well, that makes me feel a little better about the deal. But I still go back and think about that. You know, you can think you're doing the right thing in rodeo and be doing it completely wrong and about get somebody hurt all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
You always got to be observant and try to learn the guys, their habits, and, you know, that's all there is to that.
yeah, it's ever changing. So.
Yeah.
Favorite truck and trailer that you went down the road with that you enjoyed, that did you know, a good service? And
I had an old 1996 Freightliner single axle and a Hart air ride trailer. That was probably my favorite rig.
It's a nice rig.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed taking it.
Do you remember kind of when you first started, like, not when it's just you trying to do the rough stock stuff, but what you kind of run right at the very get, you know, when you were maybe going and getting paid and picking up, and what did you have for truck and trailer then?
About a 99 Dodge Dually and that Exus trailer.
Yeah. Is that the V10 one that you had? You run that for quite a while, but you had more miles on the other V10.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I started, I guess I had an old 79 Ford back then with a 460 in it.
Yeah. Is that the one you pulled the big sled with when you take like Kurt out to nationals?
No, that was a 1990 Ford.
Was it a big gas motor too?
No, it was a 7.3.
A 7.3
diesel. She was a pooch.
That's before they were turbo too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were just kind of.
We went out to Gillette, Wyoming. There was a bunch of us running together, and they could never lose me because I spit black smoke all the way out.
I bet.
They say, yeah, he's up there. He's sitting in smoke signals.
So if you were to give someone advice like my age, high school, or Lance or Bronk, what would be the number one thing you would say?
Work hard at what you do, but enjoy it. And don't worry about what other kids are doing. Just make your run, and everything will be fine. You just keep a good attitude. Don't get down on yourself, because that's when things really go bad.
Yeah.
You just keep working against yourself. So
I think right now, just for speaking from experience, a lot of us get really hard on ourselves. Like this generation, we're so busy and we get very wrapped up in our sports, whether that's baseball or basketball, rodeo, anything really. Like, kids are very hard on themselves when they can't.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Things.
And that's kind of a bad thing in a way.
Yes.
Because it really works on your mind, and you just, okay, I didn't do good today, but I'm going to do better tomorrow. And if you don't do better tomorrow, well, I'm going to go home and work on it, you know, and it'll all work out at the end.
And I think there's a lot of comparison these days. I mean, there's looking at people in that, like, boosting your want to do better, and I think that's the good part of it, but also comparing, like, oh, they're better than me, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's good and bad towards, like, comparing yourself towards other people. You can use it to motivate you, or
that's right.
more to
But a lot of
get
times
down.
you hear what their time is. Let's say in the polls or whatever. So you're trying to beat that time, but you're trying to make shortcuts to beat it, and that's where you mess up.
You lose those fundamentals.
You lose the fundamentals. You don't go through what you practiced, and you do a lot better if you just stay with what you know.
Yeah.
We'll switch gears, and I'm gonna go back to a little advice, because I like that part of what we've been doing here, because I do think that families are listening to these going down the road with. This is obviously episode 1, but we've had a couple other. We're going back, and and so we'll go back to the advice. But just to get to know you a little bit more, what's a typical Tuesday look like for you now, and what you're doing?
Oh, it's a lot like a Monday, and not quite what the Wednesday's going to be.
No, Wednesdays are faster. But you get up and you got livestock at the house and horses and
do chores. Then I go shoe a few horses during the day and come home, do chores again, and then do the same thing the next day.
Yeah. That's what you talk about, or I talked about you being so smooth picking up. I always I've seen a lot of guys that have put steel on horses, and out west there's a lot of cowboys that just kind of do their own, and not so many professionals. There's actually more professional farriers, in my opinion, here than what we were around, when we lived out west. And so I've seen quite a few and got some buddies that do it and stuff. But how smooth you are on, it's got to be that's the only answer that everybody, that I know that does what you do for a living. Like, if they could keep going and do as many horses and get under as many horses as you, they have to get as smooth as you are, because you just can't fight horses.
No,
and,
you can't fight them all,
and be able to color all under. Because, you're doing, what do you, approximately?
Nowadays, I do anywhere from 30 to 40 a week.
30 to 40 a week, but times how many years, though, have you been crawling under them?
50 years.
50 years of crawling under. And in your heyday, how many do you think you probably were?
Oh, I had a clientele, I don't know, of probably 325, 350 horses that I'd take care of every 6 weeks or so.
That's just an incredible, for any tradesman to be able to do that.
That was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
Put too much wear and tear, and then you.
The chiropractor's probably that you did that many. But
he loves his boat.
He loves his boat. Did he name it after you or anything?
Yeah.
The SS Bogner horseshoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's one thing that the guys always talk about. Anybody that's seen you operate that way, anybody that works with their hands or works in trades or something like that, you can appreciate a craftsman type of a deal.
Like when calf ropers, a real smooth calf roper will be fast.
Right.
It's anything you do, slow down and is fast.
Is it repetition too with being slow? Being smooth or I don't.
You know what your next move's going to be. You know where your tools are at. You don't really have to look. You just reach over and get them.
Muscle memory.
Muscle memory. There you go.
Yeah.
Me and you.
Good. It used to be so. And neither are the muscles.
I try. I'll be honest. I try and be like you on how you do stuff, and it's like I know what my next move should be, but nobody told everybody else what
well, yeah.
my next move should be. The stock doesn't know what I think the next move should be, and so it's just the way you keep your place and everything. And, I'm always impressed. When we used to go up there and you'd throw all the doors open down the barn and your horses all come up and they all walk into their stalls. And I'm just like, I would like to see if he has a train wreck sometime, just to make me feel better about my daily occurrences.
Sometimes they go right through the barn and out, and they miss their stalls altogether.
I suppose
it only takes one.
If one does it, the rest
can follow.
Right. Did you have anything else, Addison?
I don't think so.
I had a couple more here too. Going back to the advice deal, if there's anything that stands out in your mind that somebody, like I was talking about with that deal with Rudy, telling me to go fast, slowly, that's advice that kind of sticks out that somebody told you that helped you out in your career moving forward.
Well, I think I already told you that. Just stay calm and go on with. But you were talking about family in rodeo, and that's very true, because I remember this has been quite some years back, and you were involved in it, and I never ever forgot about it. We were at a high school rodeo in Arthur, Illinois.
Oh, sure.
Remember?
Yeah.
And I got in that wreck.
Scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I got in that wreck, and anyway, where I'm going with this is, it just seemed like people involved with the high school rodeo or any rodeo, it seems like, there's a bunch of them that you're not even related, but you're as close as family.
Yeah.
You'll help each other out, and like Chelsea was young then, and Vanessa was with me going to the hospital, so she had to be there, take care of the horse, and my brother-in-law Carl was there to help her too. But then there's my rig sitting there, and
right.
And I guess they called you, because I don't remember a lot of it. And
that was one of my scariest moments for
they
sure.
Had you come down And you know,
I stopped and seen you in the hospital on the way down before I ever got to your rig, and that's my first experience with a brain bleed.
Yeah.
You know, type of a deal. It's
some
scary.
of that I don't remember.
You know? It's probably for the best because it did not look like a good time.
You know, I felt so good knowing that everything was taken care of.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was just like family, and that's really important.
That the whole deal is kind of. I mean, that all happened because of you taking care of somebody to start with. I think you kind of cut a horse off to keep from running over a kid, didn't you?
Yeah, the kid bucked off in front of the chutes, and he was not doing too good, and all the guys that were working the chutes were gathered around him, and this bareback horse come smoking across the front of the chutes, and she's blind in one eye, so I figured she couldn't see him anyway, so I tried cutting her off, and it cut her off, but
it paid a heavy price.
It knocked my horse down, and that's all I remember.
That's the one thing. I always get questions like, what is rodeo like at school? Or like, someone asks, like, what's it like? Or what do you learn from it, like any other sport? And that's probably the number one thing I say is the family. Like, you show up, and you're like, oh my gosh, and hug everybody. You know, you haven't seen each other in a couple months prior. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway that I explain to people. That I make it a point to tell people, like, it's a family.
It is, and it's the only sport in the country that every contestant helps another contestant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you're competing against them, but they help you to try to beat them.
Yep.
Sure.
You know, what's wrong with that picture? But no, that's pretty cool.
I can't count the many times that Lance has stopped me and been like, hey, get out of your head, or, you know what I mean? Like, he's like my big brother. I mean, that's just how it is with the pep talks out at nationals. Like, that's just how everybody is. It's how it goes.
I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
That always, when we used to have the barn out in the state of Wyoming, them guys would come in, you know, the bigger RCA guys would come and overlay at that barn when they were going to Cheyenne, or in the wintertime going to Denver or wherever it happened to be, and they would all rope and stuff like that. And I always noticed that, because there's outliers. There's guys that are only there for themselves. You know, they really get kind of proud of what they're doing or whatever. But the top guys have got a network of people that they're buddies with all across the country. You know, that they help and they call. And they would come into a local barn like that we had and wouldn't rope with each other. They'd rope with local guys, you know, and spread out and, you know, talk and converse and kind of help you out. Like, you know, a little tip here, a little tip there. You know, and you never know, that local guy that you were just helping out may be the guy that bumps you from, you know, 2-3 years down the road. Yeah. I remember we used to, these little kids that would be up there at Blackhawk, remember that? Like, smiling and carrying on their ponies, and you're like, oh, crud, I'm going to be giving them my money here in 2 or 3 years, I can tell.
And they would.
Yeah.
They'd take it.
But they still give the advice. And that's got, you know, a lot of, like, what I want out of this podcast is there's, you know, it's not maybe as generational, and maybe it never was as generational as what it feels like to maybe if you're new coming into rodeo. But just that, you know, not everybody's got a Dale, you know, in their life, you know, that's giving them advice. And
to count their blessings.
But, I mean, and, you know, or if they probably have somebody that tries to help them or whatever, but maybe not, you know, at your level, or been, you know, to the thousands of rodeos that you've been to, you know. So I like doing this, and I appreciate you sitting down, you know, and doing it with us. That's a lot of the reason why I wanted you episode 1. I mean, not just for these kids, but for me. And you were talking about that deal down in Arthur when that happened. I remember right after that, I had to pick up a deal, and you were out then. And I don't know if it was my first one I ever picked up without you or not. But
in Wyoming.
Yeah, but I picked it up, and it was not the same without you. I'll put it that way. My horse was gassing out, and it kind of jacked a horse up over it a little bit. And I remember you on the fence at that time. You were just like, you're going to have to pick this up like you're the only one out here, because you're getting, you know, the guy that's supposed to be driving and pushing to you, he ain't where he needs to be. So you're just going to have to try and do it by yourself. And that's when I first realized that this isn't as easy as it looks when you ain't got a Dale helping you pick up. So I've appreciated your friendship for, you know, a long time now. And
I've appreciated yours too.
Not just in the rodeo world, but, you know, we went out and branded calves and been traveling around, and the team rope and stuff and whatnot too, and your family. I've been been blessed to be around them for a long time and live fairly close to each other. So
Don't forget the buffalo.
chase buffalo
Oh my
together.
gosh, the buffalo! I forgot all about that ordeal. We're done. my horse was a submarine.
We might as well. I'm sure there's new people and there's people that haven't heard this story, so we might as well hash it out. But so I'll start back on my side of the story. We were roping. I don't think, no, it was an actual roping because Carl was making them bounty steers. And so he would call that, there was a steer that would beller and blow straight up in the air as soon as you jerked your slack on him. And he said that if you took him in the roping, he'd put 500 with it on it. And so I took him in the roping up there and I roped him. He bailed out, blew up and bailed off to the right, and took coils out of my hand. And as he did it, I kind of knew he was there, and my horse, I kind of kicked him with it. But I got shot one coil the way that everybody loses their thumb, shot out of one hand and over my thumb on the other. And my horse was coming too, and I was like, I ain't losing my thumb. And my horse moved enough that I was able to drop that coil over the saddle horn, and it crushed my thumb. And I busted. Still to this day, my thumb folds backwards from it. So I say that story to start the buffalo story because I don't remember did we know that night that we needed to go the next morning? But it was the next morning after that. I don't remember when you found out their buffalo were loose.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and it's this guy that owns these buffalo, and I thought it was a friend of ours that likes to play practical jokes on the phone. So, Tommy.
Right. I think most people know Tommy Dis.
Oh my gosh.
So I thought it was Tommy Dis. And this guy says, tells me his name. He says, the sheriff told me to call you. He said, I got buffalo out, and he said you could catch them for me. I said, Tommy, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. He said, I don't know who this Tommy is, but this is the deal. And so then I called you, and he had no idea for sure where they were at.
Right.
So you and I went to hunting them and found them down there on Lake Snatchwine.
I'll start back. So I crushed that thumb and whatnot, and so I'm always on board for an adventure horseback, and especially when you're involved. So you call, and I'm like, I'm there. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I got out there, and my hand is swelled up so bad I can't pull my own latigo to tighten my saddles up. So I had to get Jennifer to come tighten my horses up for me and get them on the truck and trailer. And I drove up to your house. Met you at your house and loaded on your truck and trailer, and we went back down.
Yeah.
And we rode from basically Putnam almost to Henry, kind of, down the river that way. And I think we started back and then found them, and it was an explosion of animal through cattails.
Yeah. Then we did get them all gathered behind the levee.
Right, in that marina deal.
Yeah. And I called the guy that owned them. I said, we got them located and gathered up here. I said, bring a truck and trailer and all the gates you can find.
Right. Because we had them on the wing, they would go out on that wing that protects the boats.
And he said, we don't need gates. He said, I'll just bring a bucket of corn. I can't repeat what you said, but,
these
but it was
things,
something about loading squirrels.
Right. These things are swamp creatures. You ain't never been around buffalo on dry ground. I kind of assume that's their natural habitat, is dry ground. Buffalo are just as good in mud and cattails, maybe better than in the dry ground. They would run and slide with their legs all back behind them on their chest. Look like little torpedoes sliding through the cattails across stuff you wouldn't even, kind of be able to get across horseback. When they
like
do
a hairy flipper just going
like a big overgrown beaver just shooting out across the beaver pond.
That was a deal.
And so that guy showed up, and it turned that they run off into the river.
Yeah.
And I rode way out into the river, and I was surprised because there was no silt or anything.
Yeah.
And a long, long ways out. And the river's real wide and shallow right there.
Yeah, it's just
Lake
Snatchwine.
Right. I rode a long way out in it. And got them back, and then they tried it again and tried it with you, and they split us. Yeah. And I had a couple, and you had a couple that tried the river, and mine did the old beaver slide deal across the cattails, and I pulled up, and I thought I'd hurt my horse pretty bad, because he hit front legs into it, and kind of got stopped, and he sucked back real hard, and he's got a leg up in the air, in the bad shape. And I looked over at the river, and I seen you in the water, with Brownie,
Yeah.
the black horse.
Yeah.
But and all I can see is his ears like swinging around. That's it, out of the water, and you out in front of him. I'm like, oh, this has gotten really bad. And so I took off running and run out in that water. Well, I had my phone and my wallet, and all my stuff in my pockets, and run out in there, and we got him cut loose to where I got his head up out of the water. And then everybody just stood there and breathed for a little bit on the deal. And I didn't think nothing of it. But he stood there and breathed, and you're like, all right, let's try him, And I don't remember if you laced him with a rein a little bit or something, and just kind of got him to jump. Well, he jumped on top of me, not on me per se, but I had my chinks on.
Yeah.
And he stomped them chinks and shoved me down under the water on the deal. And so, we kind of lost steam on this guy's buffalo by that point. And long story short, they ended up getting them. But I'm sure you were, but I know I was in bad shape by the time we left because we loaded everything back up. And no, we didn't either. We never met that morning. My truck and trailer, I met you down on the river.
Yeah.
Because we loaded it up and I jumped in with you and your truck and trailer. We drove all the way up and we're sitting looking at your barn. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I go, well, I don't live here, Dale. My truck and trailer's back down on the river. That's how played out we were by the time we got done with that mess.
That was a deal.
He'd turn around, drive me back down there, and let me back out.
That was a deal.
Man, that was something else. Well, we could sit around and there's been other ones for sure that we've been involved with, from almost running out of gas going down the road and trying to decide who was going to ride to the gas station in the middle of the night. And there's a long way out in Nebraska in between gas stations at 2 o'clock in the morning. I do know that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I guess we'll wrap it up with that story unless you've got something else, Addison.
No, thank you.
Dale, we're glad
thank you guys very much.
Glad that you sat down here with us for the second time, and this one was just as good as the first one was, and we sure appreciate it.
Sense.
So yeah,
we've had a good time.
We didn't cover either. You play the guitar, and have you been playing as much here just as of recent, or
no, not very.
You
much.
haven't been. If you ever get a chance and you hear or see Dale playing with the guitar, it is worth your time to quit what you're doing. And if it's somebody passing out free money, you need to go see Dale get the guitar and get money later. So.
Didn't you play at my parents' wedding? I heard a
well,
story.
we sang a song, but
yes.
No.
But I did hear that you would sing something.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
that was your dad's doing.
Yes.
You write your own songs and
like
play
to,
and stuff. So, one thing else I wanted to cover real quick too, and that we hadn't yet: favorite horse and why was your favorite horse that you rode?
Oh, that's easy. I got an old horse. He's an Appaloosa. We call him Rob. I've had him since he's a year old, and he just picked up everything so easy to train him. I used him for a turnback horse for the high school cutters and stuff like that, and he just would do it.
Yeah.
And roping, I won a super horse contest on him when he was only 3 years old, barely broke. And
where was that at?
Up at Christensen's.
Yeah.
They had a super horse contest up there. And then I went picking up on him, and he just took to it, and he knew where to go all by himself, pretty much. He's 35 years old now and still standing anyway.
Yeah.
So he's the best horse I ever owned.
I got to ride him. I didn't ride him very much, but I know I rode him the one time for sure because it'll stick in my mind because we talked about this the last time we did it. There's only 2 horses that I've ever been on that felt like there's a horse that we stood out west that was a world champion rope horse and had a bunch of points and other stuff besides just heeling. And we stood him in stud, and he kind of moved the way Rob did to an extent, but that horse just moved different. It was like riding a different type of animal. I mean, he could just get across ground, and it didn't jar you. You know what I mean? It just seemed like you could go fast. Not just because he was going fast did it mess you all up. I mean, like everybody could be fast, at the same time. And I know, to have a horse like that, I don't think everybody gets them all the time. So. I mean, you've had
to me,
oodles of horses, and he's...
He was a once-in-a-lifetime horse for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed him.
What is the key to finding a horse like that?
luck.
Luck. I figured that's what you were going to say.
I don't know how much time you got, but
I mean,
this horse came to me real luck. I mean, I shoe for the lady that raised him. He was just a weanling. And it was in the wintertime, and the lot they were in had a little low spot filled with water, and it'd freeze over, and this goofy thing would get out on that ice. He's just like Bambi. He'd run out there and lock his feet up and just slide across the ice, and he'd play out there. Well, that's kind of a goofy horse, you know. And when he got up to a year old, she had her trainer come out and look at her babies, see which ones keep, which ones get rid of. He seen that one. He said, "Oh, get rid of that one. That one's never going to be any good." And
what was his discipline that he was the trainer for?
He trained Western pleasure horses.
Western pleasure.
And roping horses. And done a lot of roping horses, too. Anyway, he said, get rid of that one. He's not going to be any good. So now I told her when I watched him out there playing, I'd kind of like to have him. So she called me up and says, well, Roger don't want him, so what do you give me for him? So I just shot her a price. She said, okay. And I went and picked him up. And then when I got him trained, he got old enough to where I team roping on him. I was at a roping, and Roger was there, the trainer. And I roped my steer, and he did all right. And I go riding back to the bunch there, and man, that's a nice horse you got. And I says, yeah, and I want to thank you for him. You're the one that turned him down.
That's a hero to zero moment right there for sure.
Right there. So that was.
Did you ever try and duplicate him? Like, did she have a stud there? Like,
yeah, she had her own stud, but she never had anything.
She could get one bred like him again, huh?
Well, I don't know, maybe did, but I just didn't.
Yeah.
When I went and seen what she had when I was showing them, I just wasn't impressed by.
Is that how you come by quite a few of your horses?
Just out in the country, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about that too, because you can pick. I mean, because you get them young, and they will turn out. You know, they're big, stout. And I've seen you measure up horses and stuff before. But is there a certain thing that you look at when you're looking at a horse like this sucker is probably going to end up being the deal? You know, when he's 6 years old, that he's going to be stout boned and.
Well, yeah, I do look at bone structure and what I think they're going to mature out to be, muscle and stuff like that, and plus attitude.
Yeah.
I don't want something wild-eyed and crazy, but that's what I kind of look for. I've just been lucky.
Yeah, lucky kind of quits being the definition after 50 years of doing this. I think there's a little more to it than just luck all the time. I don't say it doesn't help, but the experience for it. I could keep you here all day, Dale, and do this, but we've got a rodeo to do tonight, so I'll let you go, and I appreciate you
it's
doing
been a pleasure.
it, and I think everybody else will too that gets to hear this.
It's been a pleasure.